everywhere. I've been to Pittsburgh, Parkersburg, Gravelburg, Colorado, Ellen City, Cedar City, Dodge City, what a pity. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere.
Welcome to Home Sweet WeatherTech Home, a place where dirt stays outside and floors are protected, where standing is comfortable and water never leaves a mark. It's spotless under the sink, and kids can be kids. Order your American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Is he a reckless madman?
He craves control.
Or a Russian patriot?
He wanted to make Russia great again.
Who is Vladimir Putin? Sunday on the Fox News Channel.
Russian troops have taken control of the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe after a middle-of-the-night attack. The reckless assault set fire to the plant and briefly raised worldwide fears of a catastrophe in the most chilling turn in Moscow's invasion of Ukraine yet. This is Outnumbered. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Here with me, my co-host Kaylee McEnany, Fox Business anchor Dagan McDowell, and also joining us today, Jillian Turner and Britt Hume. Now, Russian troops are now in control of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine, giving Putin the power to pull the plug on 1/4 of the Ukraine's power generation anytime it wants. Ukrainian President Zelensky likening the overnight nuclear terror to a harrowing moment in history. Watch.
To all people who know the word Chernobyl, who knows how much grief and victims the explosion at the nuclear power plant brought, it was a global catastrophe. Russia wants to repeat this and is already repeating it, but 6 times more.
Despite the scare, Ukrainian regulators are reporting that radiation levels appear normal and that the fire has been extinguished. Trey Yangst live in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, with the latest. Trey.
Emily, good afternoon. Fighting erupted overnight at a power plant in Inner Hodar, Ukraine. This is a city in the southern part of the country. And while officials say no radioactive material was released, the plant was hit with a Russian shell and small arms fire. Russian forces have since seized this plant, known for being the largest in Europe. The incident left the international community on edge, with concerns that clashes were taking place so close to radioactive material. With the Russians now in control, they will be able to weaponize or leverage a facility that supplies Ukraine with 25% of its energy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had this to say about the attack.
Russian people, I want to appeal to you. How is it possible, after all we fought together in 1986 against the Chernobyl catastrophe consequences? You must tell your authorities, go to the streets and say that you want to live on Earth without radioactive contamination.
The attack on a nuclear power plant comes as Russian forces move closer to the Ukrainian capital. The Russian defense minister released new video overnight showing tanks and soldiers crossing into the Kyiv region. There have been intense air campaigns against areas just outside of Kyiv, with schools and residential buildings hit over the past 24 hours. The shelling is often indiscriminate. And I should underscore, the images that we see here out of Ukraine only represent a portion of the country. There is intense shelling taking place in many of the southern cities, including the port city of Mariupol, where Ukrainian forces are reportedly surrounded. Emily?
Trey, notwithstanding what you just said there, yesterday Ukraine and Russia agreed to a temporary local ceasefire for humanitarian aid and evacuations. But the Ukraine presidential advisor has said that Ukraine's needs have yet to be met. So what are you seeing or hearing on the ground about any type of ceasefire for humanitarian purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw another meeting between the Russians and the Ukrainians along the border with Belarus. And once again, you could see just by what the sides were wearing, how they are preparing. The Russians in suits and ties and the Ukrainians in battle fatigues. Out of that meeting, one small piece of good news: it appears they are open to setting up a humanitarian corridor. Now, if this is actually implemented, it will give civilians in different locations across the country the ability to flee. Part of the issue with many of these southern cities, you have civilians caught amid the crossfire, and they are simply running out of supplies. They're caught amid Russian shellings, and if they don't get to safety, many could be killed or injured. Emily?
Trey, thank you so much for your insight and reporting. As always, stay safe, and we will talk to you soon. Bringing in our panel now, Britt Hume, your top line analysis, sir.
Well, I think the thing to worry about from that nuclear plant is something that Trey touched on, and that is not so much that they're going to blow the place up or anything like that. I don't think the Russians will do that, but they're in a position now to turn the lights out in a big section of Ukraine, which would be devastating. And people would be without heat, they'd be without electricity, they'd be without things that they need to live. So that is why this capture of that nuclear power plant is such a big deal, in my view.
And Jillian, despite reports of resistance and stalling, Putin maintains that everything is going according to schedule, to his plan, and the execution of such. Your thoughts?
Everything is not going according to Putin's plan. Among a whole host of miscalculations and mistakes and blunders he has presided over during the first week of this war, the biggest mistake he's made is underestimating the will of the Ukrainian people to take to the streets, to take up arms and defend their homeland. So, it's unsurprising that he is saying that. He would. I mean, he's an autocrat, isolated in his compound inside Moscow. It's not to say, though, Emily, that there isn't much to be fearful. There is a tremendous amount to be fearful of right now. Ukrainian journalists are fleeing in the middle of the night in fear of their lives. We heard yesterday, I broke reporting from a European official who told me that they have seen intelligence documents that show Russia's security service, intelligence services, the FSS, have draft plans to conduct public executions in Ukrainian cities as they take them over one by one. So even though Putin is failing so far, there is still a very treacherous road ahead for the Ukrainians.
As well, the Russians, Britt. So just yesterday, a bill was introduced and voted on the floor there in Russia, sentencing, quote, unofficial reporting or an unofficial reporter to 15 years in prison. So talk to us about the larger scale operations by Putin, both in Ukraine and then as well at home.
Well, one of the issues you have to deal with here is, while the world is watching this and much of the world is seeing this war being fought basically in real time with all the hideous images that are coming out, as you can see on the screen now, a wonderful example of that. In Russia, it's a different matter entirely. And this effort to crack down on what few independent sources of news there are in Russia will make it even more difficult for the people of Russia to know what's really going on. I saw a report today from a person who is in Ukraine being shelled, speaking to her mother in Russia, who said she didn't believe it. So it gives you that it is always true, as Abraham Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time. And in Russia, the effort is underway, of course, to fool all the people all the time, which would be an impediment to any hope we might have that the Russian people would rise up. I think that's been a long shot and remains a very long shot indeed.
That's right. And yesterday, President Zelensky, in his continued appeal for global support, maintained that the might of all the globe is bigger than Putin's might. And he sort of kept emphasizing, I need more help, sort of begging, frankly, for support. Your thoughts on the reaction of the surrounding countries? We know that NATO has rejected a no-fly zone. So what do you see happening? What do you see occurring in the realm of support? And will that be enough? Is there an inevitability to this one way or another, Britt?
Well, the Western nations and NATO countries will continue to push supplies and weaponry into Ukraine. They could certainly use air support, but that's been ruled out, and I think probably sensibly so. One thing that General Keane has mentioned, which I think is potentially very important, is the possibility of U.S. covert operations. We've been doing these kinds of operations and training for them for many years now, and many experts think we've gotten quite good at it. And it can be done with deniability such that we could take, obviously there's risk, but that could make a difference, and particularly in certain parts of Ukraine. So, and we won't know about that until later, if ever. And that's probably a good thing.
That is a good thing.
It's something to be aware of.
That's right, Dagan, because there's certainly no shortage of support conceptually, certainly by the American people and frankly, the majority of the globe. The question is how, right?
To add to what Britt was saying, the Wall Street Journal editorial page wrote a piece on what the U.S. can do. And in terms of covert capabilities, we can unleash those with a presidential finding. And our covert operations could help special forces with, say, they have expertise in sabotage. They can use unmanned drones. These vehicle convoys, the Russian vehicle convoys, are kind of, to use the journal's words, ripe for the use of unmanned drones. But Vladimir Putin's not going to stop. Like, we're talking about 1/4 of the the energy being cut off with the attack on this one nuclear facility. The goal is to wipe out the entire country. And Britt could weigh in on this, but Britt, so many people have gone back to what happened in Grozny in 99-2000 under the leadership of then burgeoning tyrant Vladimir Putin, where that city was reduced to rubble. The UN referred to it as the most destroyed city on earth. There were no rules of warfare. There was rape. There was torture of civilians. And that's one of the gravest concerns by the rest of the world. And maybe the focus of cameras within Ukraine will prevent that from happening. But I was curious because you are a historian, an amazing one.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm
Yes,
just
you
a
are,
reporter, but thank you. Well, I think Grozny was an example of what Putin is willing to do. Aleppo in Syria is the same thing. I think he would have liked to carry this out in sort of a quick strike, decisive 3-day campaign, get control of Kiev, depose the leader, maybe even kill him, install some quisling to run the place for him. That has failed, obviously, and continues to fail. At least the attack from the north does. So we're in now we're settled in for what looks like is going to be a much more protracted, bloody, and brutal conflict. And you can't rule out that he would employ exactly the same tactics he did in Grozny and Aleppo, reduce those places to, as you say, rubble and to ashes. The fact, though, that this is going to be visible to much of the rest of the world in the way that those other two places were not, may, as you've suggested, be a deterring factor.
That's right, Kaylee. So against the backdrop of a pattern by Putin of, frankly, war crimes, we have another example of the audacity for him to attack a power plant, which frankly held the world captive in fear for the last 12 hours.
Yeah, I do worry about the unprecedented nature of this. And Britt, maybe you can speak to that. When you consider and look back at nuclear power plants in times of war, what you see is there have been plants under construction that have been destroyed. Iraq is an example, Syria, Israel. But when you look at nuclear plants that are actually operational, the two examples that we have are Armenia, Azerbaijan, that conflict, also India, Pakistan. But the fighting took place hundreds of miles from these operational plants. And according to The Economist, to have an operational nuclear plant seized by force is unprecedented. So does the unprecedented nature of this, I agree with you entirely, Vladimir Putin doesn't want to blow this up. He just wants to maintain control. But does the unprecedented nature concern you?
Well, of course it does. In many ways, this war is unprecedented, at least in recent times. And one can, the more frustrated he becomes, Putin, the more dangerous he becomes. It seems to me. At least that's something we have to worry about. So here we are now. This is what, day 8 of a campaign that I think it was hoped by the Russian authorities would last only a few days, and here we are at day 8. Kyiv is still in Ukrainian hands. A couple of places have fallen. More almost certainly will. But what we can't tell is how far this will go. My sense of this could go on for a very long time. And even if he gets apparent control of the place, there'll be an insurgency. That will be bloody. And that Ukraine is going to be in a terrible place for a very long time.
And that convoy is still stalled, blessedly.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it seems like we keep hearing, the next 36 hours will be crucial, but we keep hearing that. So how many more chunks of 36 hours until, to your point, what is inevitable? All right, coming up, we're going to take you to the domestic front of this, where President Biden says America stands firmly with Ukraine, but President Zelensky thinks the West could be doing a lot more as Russia closes in. That's next.
Veteran homeowners, need a financial boost? The new Day 100 VA loan lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value and take out up to $60,000 or more. Give them a call.
Call 1-800-397-8128.
Veteran homeowners, New Day wants to help you use your VA home loan benefit to get more cash, more savings, more peace of mind. The New Day 100 VA loan lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, up to $60,000 or more. Veterans are saving an average of $615 every
1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door, ready to make an entrance, so back on up. Cause you know we're about to rip shit up. Give me the microphone first so I can bust like a bubble. Compton and Long Beach together, now you know you in trouble. Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. Too low death niggas, so we're crazy. Death Row is the label that pays me. Unfadable, so please don't try to fake this. But back to the lecture at hand. Perfection is perfected, so I'ma let them understand. From a young G's perspective. And before me dig on a bitch, I have to find a contraceptive. You never know, she could be earning her man and learning her man. And at the same time burning her man. Now you know I ain't with that shit, Lieutenant. Ain't no pussy good enough to get burned while I'm offended. Yeah. And that's realer than real deal, Holyfield. And now you hookers and hoes know how I feel. Well, if it's good enough to get broke off a proper chunk, I take a small piece of some of that funky stuff. It's like this and like that and like this and it's like that and like this and like that and it's like this and like that and like this and Drake creep to the mic like a fan.
Well, I'm peeping and I'm creeping and I'm creeping, but I damn near got caught cause my beeper kept beeping. Now it's time for me to make my impression felt. So sit back, relax, and strap on your seatbelt. You've never been on a ride like this before. With a producer who can rap and control the maestro. At the same time with the dope rhyme that I kick. You know and I know I flow some old funky shit. To add to my collection, this selection symbolizes dope. Take a toke but don't choke. If you do, you have no clue of what me and my homie Snoop Dogg came to do. It's like this and like that and like this and it's like that and like this and like that and it's like this. And who gives a fuck about those?
So just chill to the next episode. Falling back on that ass, what a hellified gangster lean. Getting funky on the mic like an old batch of collard greens. It's the capital S-O-S, I'm fresh and double O-P, D-O-double-G-Y-D-O-double-G, you see. Showing much flex when it's time to wreck a mic. Pimping hoes and clacking a grip like my name was Dolomite. Yeah, and it don't quit. I think they in the mood for some motherfucking G shit. Yeah. So Dre,
what up, dog?
Gotta give them what they want.
What's that, G?
We gotta break them off something.
Hell yeah.
And it's gotta be bumping. City of Compton.
That's where it takes place, so when that show attention. Mobbing like a motherfucker, but I ain't lynching. Dropping the funky shit that's making the sucker niggas mumble. When I'm on the mic, it's like a cookie, they all crumble. Try to get close, and your ass will get smacked. My motherfucking homie, Doggy Dogg, has got my back. Never let me slip, cause if I slip, then I'm slipping. But if I got my Nina, then you know I'm straight tripping. And I'ma continue to put the rap down, put the Mac down. And if your bitches talk shit, I have to put the smack down. Yeah, and you don't stop. I told you I'm just like a clock when I tick and I talk. But I'm never off, always on till the break of dawn. See you when PTO in the city they call Long Beach. Putting the shit together like my nigga DOC. No one can do it better like this, that, and this, and it's like that, and like this, and like that, and it's like this. And who gives a fuck about the
making sure to avoid any direct conflict with Russian troops that could escalate global tensions. But President Zelensky says the West can and should be doing more.
How
basically counter that weapon. We really do.
It's been said already, Putin has weaponized energy. I don't believe this country should be importing anything from Russia.
Putin's major source of revenue is selling oil and gas, and Biden's given an exception.
I'm all for that. Ban it.
Britt, it's rare that you get agreement from Senator Ted Cruz and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Do you think the White House will get on board?
I suspect it may be forced to, but let's be clear about this. In political terms, continuing to import oil from Russia is something that just doesn't make any sense, and it's bad politics. it's probably not great energy policy, but in the larger scheme of things, especially affecting this conflict, it doesn't really matter very much because oil is fungible. So if it would only be a brief jolt in the world oil market if we cut off our purchases from Russia. In fact, I'm not sure we bought any from Russia this week. And what happens is that Russia then sends oil somewhere else, and some other somewhere else ships oil to us. And so we're right back where we started from. The big thing, the really critical thing, and not so much in the short term, but in the long, is will we ramp up our domestic energy industry, which is not running at anywhere near full capacity now, in such a way as we can not only meet all our energy needs, it'll help our economy, create jobs, but beyond that, and strategically more important, it would allow us to export liquefied natural gas to these countries in Western Europe, Germany especially, which are dependent on gas from Russia. And that's it was foolish of Germany to ever let themselves get into this situation, but they've done it now, and that's where we are. And it's also true that Western Europe could ramp up its energy production as well. But that, I think, is a big step that needs to be done. The problem for this president is that he's part of a party which is still deeply involved in its green energy dreams and is opposed to any further use of fossil fuels of any kind. And unfortunately, as well, I might add in passing, is also opposed to expansion of our nuclear capability, nuclear energy capability, which would have a real effect. I know France is doing it. Be good if other countries in Western Europe did that as well.
Yeah, very wise advice. Let's roll this tape, Julian. I want to get your reaction on the other side. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg asked about domestic energy production and also Iranian oil. Let's roll the tape.
Could the president possibly consider authorizing the Keystone Pipeline, working something out with Iran?
I mean, look, the president has said that all options are on the table.
It's not an option that I think should be on the table, Julian.
Well, it is. And as all this unfolds in Ukraine, over in Vienna, there are intense nuclear negotiations underway between the United States and Iran. Russia has a seat at the table beside the United States. They are announcing that pretty soon they're going to have a deal. Iran's chief negotiator said about 24 hours ago that he was expecting them to wrap up in 24 to 48 hours. I think there's an expectation that Iran's going to start sending energy our way, and that's not at all a guaranteed thing. I will also point out that Jackie asked the White House yesterday, she said to Jen Psaki, as long as we are importing oil from Russia, are we not, in a sense, financing this war? And Psaki responded to that by saying, well, we only import about 10% of our energy resources from Russia. So there's your answer.
Yeah, Jackie made a really compelling point, underscored here in this tweet by Senator Tom Cotton. Take a look at this, Dagan. At $112 per barrel, the United States is spending $22.4 million to fund Putin's war machine today alone. It's time for Biden to sanction Russian oil.
Well, the energy companies here in the United States and buyers of oil around the globe are filling this void left by Biden Incorporated. Biden and company have failed in both deed and in word on this. They've tried to spare energy transactions and the energy delivery of these sanctions, but refiners here in the United States and buyers of oil around the globe are not standing by and not stepping up to buy Russian crude and refined product. From the great oil analyst Andy Lippow, it appears that USA refiners are not entering into any new purchases of Russian oil. Part of what's going on is there are no buyers. They don't want to do business. This is not just here in the United States. This is around the globe. They don't want to do business with Russia. They don't trust Russia. The credit from banks, financing from banks is not there to make Russian purchases. There are no tankers available. Their shipping companies are not willing to send ships and tankers into Russian ports to get oil. At least 1/3 of oil coming out of Russia is not moving. So the exports out of Putin's Russia are drying up. It's one of the reasons that you're seeing the spike in oil. The markets are anticipating what's going on. It's why gasoline prices in California are now north of $5 on average. The United States, the average price is going to go to a new record high in a matter of days. The expectation is going to hit $4.25 a gallon nationwide. So you need to say, but why won't Biden and company stand up and speak up for these energy companies? Because they are the bad guys. They've been vilified by this administration. God forbid that, and by the way, energy production is going to skyrocket in the coming months in places like the Permian Basin in Texas by Exxon and the like. So private sector's doing filling the void where Biden has failed the American people. And speak to the American people and say, this is an economic war. We need to, you're going to face these high prices because we want to stand with Ukraine, and we're not going to buy Russian oil.
Yeah, and we're just getting this in, Dagan. Fox News alert. We are just learning that Vice President Harris will be visiting Poland on Monday. Also, we're getting new video in from Ukraine showing Russian military vehicles that were seen at key locations near the nuclear power plant that was recently seized. Look at that, Emily. I mean, it's just jarring to see this imagery near an operational nuclear power plant. Your thoughts?
I just think about how the cities there in Ukraine, where we have reports that Russia has encircled it, where they are running out of food and water, and in some cases have zero electricity. I look at that and see an ominous indicator, essentially. This is of what is yet to come potentially for all of Ukraine, as the power shut off, the power now that Putin has over the energy as it flows to Ukraine has basically just skyrocketed. They will use it for nefarious purposes. They will use it to squeeze the Ukrainian people. We've been having an ongoing discussion about the refugees out of Ukraine, but also the people remaining in Ukraine will be subject to starvation, lack of water, lack of food, lack of warmth. So this is incredibly disturbing.
It is, Britt, and you made the point at the top of the show about the link to power for the country. I mean, 1/5 of Ukraine's power comes from this plant. There are, I believe, 15 nuclear reactors that control 50% of the country's power. Do you think it's Putin's goal to control this nuclear power in its entirety and therefore have an immense leverage?
Well, I think that would be one thing he would certainly try to do, and no doubt this current situation reflects that. He's going to do whatever he can, and of course, he'll want to. If he can't quickly defeat the resistance in Ukraine, he will try to starve it into submission, encircling cities, cutting off supply lines, and cutting off power. So certainly that would be something he'd be aspiring to do. Whether he's able to do it, depending on the location of these plants and what forces are there or not, is something we really can't tell from this vantage point.
Now, meantime, Ukraine's President Zelensky is pleading with the world to stop Putin from creating another nuclear nightmare after Russian forces seized Europe's largest nuclear power plant, as we've been discussing, and as Putin's 40-mile convoy of tanks and armored vehicles inch closer to Ukraine's capital. Meanwhile, we are getting hold of some harrowing video of a man in Kharkiv making the video. Watch.
Выкинем в метро, и мы кончились, поэтому если сбор денег снова...
Oh, that is so difficult to watch. Mike Tobin has more from Lviv, Ukraine. Mike?
And Emily, I want to start you out with the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia. It's in a town called Enhodar, and about 3 hours up from the Black Sea. We know a training facility there was hit. It burst into flames. It's a training facility. It's not one of the nuclear reactors. The IAEA says none of the safety systems were impacted, and there's no elevated levels of radiation at that facility. However, given how scary this situation is, this is prompting President Volodymyr Zelensky really to press for more help from the West.
Жодна держава, окрім Росії, ніколи не обстрілювала атомні енергоблоки. Вперше в нашій історії, в історії людства, держава-терорист вдалася і до ядерного терору.
As far as this ominous convoy, we're still watching it and still no major development. The information is, though, that they have been flummoxed by bad equipment, flat tires, and even mud. The city of Mariupol, that's to the southeast of the country. That particular town has been under withering artillery fire for days now. You talk about your humanitarian developments. The mayor of that town says the people are out of water. They don't have heat. They don't have electricity. Civilian structures have been hit. They don't have a total for civilian casualties, but they are extensive. If you look at a map, Mariupol is to the southeast of the country. It's on the Sea of Azov. Key strategic point because it's got access to the water. Also, the town of Kherson, access to the water, and there's a bridge over the Dnieper River there that connects it to the Crimean Peninsula. Key strategic point. No independent confirmation that the Russians have control over that town, but the mayor says the Russians are in control. Odessa, off to the west of the country. Warships were seen heading in the direction of Odessa. We anticipated a big battle. Thus far, a big battle at Odessa has not materialized yet. Guys, back to you.
Thank goodness for that, at least. Mike Tobin, thank you for, as always, your excellent reporting. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. All right, meanwhile, Washington's newest worry, the dangers of cornering Putin. The New York Times reports President Biden's top aides, who are surprised by the speed at which sanctions have pummeled Russia, suspect that Putin's reaction will be to double down and lash out and perhaps expand the war. Jillian, coming to you first on this, your analysis.
Well, I think, first off, it bears mentioning the gravest danger in cornering Putin is that he's become completely irrational, unreliable, according to people who have known him for decades and worked with him for decades, and he has access to nuclear weapons. When we talk about Putin being an irrational actor, what I mean by that anyway is that he is, according to those who know him best, no longer behaving in a rational manner in his own best interest, in Russia's best interest. Over the last few decades, this has been something we could count on, right? It was relatively easy to calculate out, game out Putin's interest and where he might go in a given scenario. People are now questioning his mental state, his mental health, and say, we can't do that anymore. So that's sort of the top line risk when it comes to dealing with him right now. The other, Emily, is that while it's very clear to us sitting here that the entire world has turned against him, he's very likely unaware of that. He's very isolated, particularly during COVID. He is surrounded by a small handful of people who think like he does, who believe the same things that he does. They hand feed him information he thinks he wants. So the odds of Putin exposed to any degree of reality right now is very slim.
Britt, as Putin expands his reaction, do you anticipate that the globe will respond accordingly? What body or what state do you anticipate will rise to the occasion, and how do you see that playing out?
Well, look, NATO is not going to do more than help to get arms and supplies into Ukraine. We might be able, with some covert operations, to make a difference. But I don't think the world is going to come to the rescue of Ukraine in the way that the Ukrainian president understandably wants. He wants airplanes. He wants a no-fly zone. And, better than all of that was what he would like would be an infusion of troops from the West. That simply isn't going to happen. So the world now will watch this unfolding tragedy in Ukraine with ever greater horror, I imagine. Russia becomes then ever more a pariah state. Its people will suffer seriously from this economically. And, there are a lot of people in Russia, I think, that like to think of their country as a civilized nation. He suppresses, does Putin, as much of the information that might reach his people to tell them what's really happening as he can. But I doubt he can suppress it forever entirely. You can't fool all the people all the time. So that world reaction and the obloquy in which Russia is held will reach the people, and we'll see what that does.
Right. And Kaylee, I can only speak for myself, but it seems like so many we feel helpless geopolitically and conceptually. There's like this global feeling of helplessness as we watch play out, again, this potential inevitability of complete invasion.
Yeah, there is. And, Britt mentioned that he posted this BBC article about the propaganda effort. It's really eye-opening when you read it. about a daughter whose mom is totally misled by the propaganda. The daughter says, my parents understand that some military action is happening there, but they say Russians came to liberate you. They won't ruin anything. They won't touch you. They're only targeting military bases. You have to be delusional or heavily under the hand of propaganda to believe that. And indeed, the Russians are. I mean, when you have these, you mentioned it the other day, Russian troops arriving on the scenes, and they think they're going to be liberators, but they arrive and they're heavily embattled. They don't even recognize what is going on, some of them, till they get there. It just makes you raise the question, how misled can the Russian people be when you have these numbers of troops rising that have been lost from the battlefield? At some point, there's going to be an awakening there. I wonder if it's already starting with those 8,000 protesters that have been arrested.
Because of the sanctions, though, the Russian people are having trouble getting money out of the bank, out of an ATM. The Russians have experienced great freedoms, much more so than other nations, particularly, say, Iran, but even much greater freedoms than people in China. And so when you have American companies and Western companies all of a sudden disappear, you can't move freely in and out of Russia any longer. There might be propaganda on the TV, but you will know that something is afoot. And when your quality of life suffers dramatically, and it already is based on just anecdotes that I've heard coming out of Russia from individuals, that the Russian people begin to wake up. And as Dan Hoffman, the former CIA station chief, said earlier on the news channel, this all ends when Russia's military and soldiers stop taking orders from Putin. And they will certainly be getting information from their family members back in Mother Russia about the economic and financial calamity that they're experiencing every day.
All right, more Outnumbered in just a moment. Stay with us.
No one deserves the American dream of homeownership more than veterans. With the New Day Zero Down Home Purchase Loan, you can buy a home with no down payment, and they're still holding rates in the 2s. Already own a home and need cash? The New Day 100 loan can get you up to $60,000.
I did my time and I went out. So abusive and afraid it doesn't cut. The soul is not so vibrant. The reckoning, the sickening. Back at cheeks of virgin. Pseudo-sick with sick perversion. Go drill your deserts. Go dig your graves. Then fill your mouth with all the money you will save. Sinking in, getting smaller again. I'm done, it has begun. I'm not the only one. And the rain will kill us all. Throw ourselves against the wall. But no one else can see the preservation of the moderate me. Psychosocial, 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 psychosocial. Cool, there are cracks in the road we lay, but where the devil fell, the secrets have gone mad. This is nothing new, but when we killed it all, the end was all we had. Who needs another mess? We could start over. Just look me in the eyes and say I'm wrong. Now there's only emptiness, but I'm missing something. I think we're done. I'm not the only one. And the rain will kill us all. Throw ourselves against the wall, but no one else can see the preservation of the moderate me. If it's nothing season, is this what you want? I'm not the only one. And the rain will kill us all. Throw ourselves against the wall, but no one else can see the preservation of the martyr in me.
Him to do something, to cross the border and maybe, like maybe bribe the border, officers. But he was like, no, I must go back. I want to go back. Like he thinks that he has to be there and he has to fight for our country and for the whole, actually, like Western world.
So, Britt, while 2% of Ukraine's population are refugees now, have fled, a group, we don't have confirmed reports as to how many, but a group have been coming back from many surrounding countries. As one said, I only have one country, I have one home, and I'm going back to fight. Britt.
Well, what's interesting about that is that it reflects a big piece of Vladimir Putin's miscalculation. He didn't really. I think he believed that the Ukrainians would be happy to be back under the thumb of Mother Russia, and that Ukraine was essentially a part of Russia, and that the country of Ukraine was a fiction. And it turns out that these people, to a degree that he never imagined, are extraordinarily patriotic. They love their country, and they love the freedom they've been afforded by the end of the Russian Empire. So this was all something he didn't get. I'm not sure how many of us in the West understood how strong the Ukrainians would stand. It is really quite remarkable.
It is. And Jillian, some argue that part of Putin's delusion and unexpectedness about that has to do with the fact that he's had almost very little exposure to the West, to freedom, right? That he doesn't understand that variable, how empowering and emboldening that is, Jillian.
It's also, Emily, widely understood that he doesn't have a mobile phone. He doesn't use the internet. So when we talk about degrees of isolation, there's the person that's a little COVID phobic and maybe hasn't seen people that much for the last 2 years. And then you have the reality of a 60-year-old man who's not online, may very well have no idea that there's a refugee crisis unfolding. Right now we've seen tens of thousands flee. They're mostly in Hungary and Poland and I guess Moldova. But inside Ukraine, where his own forces are now fighting, there are tens of thousands of people huddled in train stations. That type of information is not penetrating Putin's inner wall. He very likely has no idea. A quick thing here, Emily, you spoke very poignantly about feeling helpless. I wanted to just flag for our viewers who are concerned about the refugee crisis and want to help. There are some ways you can get involved through great organizations like Doctors Without Borders, who's operating in Ukraine and in Russia right now. The UN Human Rights Commission has a U.S. branch. You can work through them. Doctors Without Borders. I don't know if I said the International Red Cross. Also, the Kyiv Independent, the outlet there, is helping taking donations and help coordinating them inside the country.
Thank you so much for that, Jillian. And, as we watch these heartbreaking images and video feed of people fleeing Ukraine, take a look at this new picture. Fox News has just received a Ukrainian soldier carrying a baby near a bombed out and broken bridge. Kaylee.
It's tragic. No baby should have to grow up in a wartime scenario like this. It just reminds me of that image of an American soldier holding a baby at the Kabul airport and the pain that these young children go through. And it's the most vulnerable among us that seem to be the ones targeted, that seem to be the ones fleeing in some cases. We know an orphanage was hit. We know a kindergarten was hit. That's according to the Ukrainian foreign minister. And this one line just stuck out to me from our UN ambassador. She said this: to make children with cancer huddle in hospital basements, interrupting their treatment, essentially sentencing them to death. This is the consequence of Vladimir Putin's maniacal terror that he is raining upon the Ukrainian people, and we should call him what he is. He is a terrorist, and the innocent, the vulnerable, the babies, the orphans, the cancer patients are the ones suffering.
War crimes indeed. All right, coming up, leading by example, the Ukrainian member of parliament who chose to stay behind to fight the Russians. She joins us next.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein.
Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and nutrients to support immune health.
Angie's List is now Angie, and it's easier than ever to get your projects done right. With Angie, you can connect with top pros and see ratings and reviews. And when you book and pay through Angie, you're covered by our happiness.
Something takes a part of me. Something lost and never seen. Every time I start to believe something's raped and taken from me. Life's gotta always be messing with me. Can't it chill and let me be free? Can't I take away all this pain? I try to every night, all in vain. Sometimes I cannot take this place. Sometimes it's my life I can't taste. Sometimes I cannot feel my face. You'll never see me fall from grace.
Ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to start streaming the Jen Psaki's going to have a press conference apparently. I'm going to stream that from my main channel, folks. I'm going to stream that from my main channel. What the fuck is going on? That's odd. I had like fucking, that's odd. I thought I had like 50 something people watching this shit. What the fuck happened? That was odd. I thought I had like 50 something people watching the stream. I just lose everybody like that? Are you fucking kidding me? That's weird. Anyway, Slap Sippy Cup. What up, everybody? What up? So I'm going to start the Jen Psaki. My voice is all fucked up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start the Jen Psaki stream in about, I think she's going to have an urgent meeting. They're going to have an urgent press briefing in another 30 minutes. So I'm going to stream that. I'm going to keep up the rest of Outnumbered, and I'm going to start a stream on the other end. All right. Just want to let you guys know. Hope everybody's having a good one. You already know what it is. It's your boy, Fox News Cannabis. You guys like it? You guys like this one? Fox News Cannabis. That's who I am. Fox News Cannabis. Fuck Fox News, motherfuckers. Fucking with your boy. I could have sworn that I see 20 now, but I could have sworn I saw over, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was just fucking, this is a new channel, but I could have sworn I saw 54 a while ago, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I swear. Oh, there was 2 going. Yeah. You see, there was 2 going. I know what I'm telling you. I had, because I started the stream on another channel. I don't know what happened. Something got screwed up here, but Fox News Potheads. I don't know. I think I probably fucked up, but whatever. I mean, I kept it here. I kept it on the same channel, so I don't know why. But that's all good. I'm gonna start a new stream on the main channel, folks. You already know what it is. Give me a second. Oh shit. Give me a second here.
With the Finnish president, as for the first time, a majority of Finns support joining NATO in the wake of everything that's going on in Ukraine. We'll have all the latest developments on the Ukraine crisis as we check in with people on the ground in the war zone and our terrific team of correspondents. I'm John Roberts. Join Sandra Smith and me at the top of the hour for America Reports. See you then.
A remarkable profile and courage. Ukrainian parliament member Kira Rudik is one woman standing strong against the Russian invasion. Pictured here holding a rifle, the 36-year-old is the leader of the country's Voice political party and has been a member of the country's parliament since 2019. She vows to stay behind and fight as a 40-mile-long Russian convoy approaches Kyiv. Kira Rudik joins us now. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Ms. Rudik. I watched one of your interviews and a line stuck out to me. I'm on Putin's kill list. Those are chilling words. You're exhibiting remarkable bravery, staying there to fight for your country. What is motivating you to stay?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, the anger. I'm super angry that right now I have to change my life completely, that all the things that I used to love and care for right now are different, that I have to switch from being a woman, a politician, to being a warrior and change my life completely, that I have to bear guns, that I have to, that I cannot plan for my future right now because we all have to defend our country against the horde of soldiers that are coming in here to kill us and take what is ours. And this makes me very, very angry. And this is what makes me want to bear arms, to march in front of Putin's troops and make sure that we win. And I think that Ukrainian nation right now has shown their incredible bravery. And I think right now Ukrainian nation has shown that we can stand up to one of the largest and the most aggressive armies in the world. Putin tried to take our country. He said, I will take it in 24 hours. We are standing up for 10 days. So when Putin says that he says some kill list and our intelligence tells me that I'm on it, well, let it be, because there is a bigger situation. There is a bigger plan, which is to win this war, to make sure that Russians would not be able to take any of our major cities, to make sure that we prepare for a siege, to make sure that every man and woman in Ukraine know to defend themselves and know to stand up for the horde that is attacking us. So far, we have been so successful, and so far we have been doing very well. So we are getting ready to what is coming up next, and we are very, very motivated to win.
Ms. Riddick, it's an honor to witness your bravery and your warrior spirit, and we are sending you all of our support and our prayers. My question to you is, what is your message to the American government and to the American people?
Ukrainians are very good in fighting Russians on the land. And I'm extremely grateful for all the help and support that we are getting from our allies. We are here in this together. However, there is one thing that we need the most. This is a no-fly zone over Ukraine's territory. Because if I can take Kalashnikov and march forward, there is something that I cannot do. I cannot protect myself and the ones who I love from the missiles that are coming from the air. This is where we need help and support. I know that it is complicated. I'm a politician myself. I know it is hard to do, and sometimes it creates like a lot of political obstacles. But this is the only way that Ukraine can win this war, to get the support, to get a no-fly zone from our allies. Look what happened this night. Putin is crazy. He is attacking a nuclear station, nuclear plant in Ukraine. And this becomes not only a Ukrainian problem, because radiation doesn't care which passport you're holding. It doesn't care if you're a NATO member or not. It will just blow on everybody's face. And then we will face the tragedy like never before. As a person who faced Chernobyl, I can tell you, like this will be a terrifying tragedy implemented by Putin. Are we sure that he wouldn't go forward? Well, if we would have had a no-fly zone over Ukraine, we would be sure right now that he wouldn't be hitting the nuclear stations, but he is. And this is why we need the support. This is why I'm calling for all the NATO allies. Please provide a no-fly zone for Ukraine, this way or another way. I don't care about the paperwork, how it will be called. I don't care if Jens Stoltenberg wouldn't go out and say, oh, this is a no-fly zone, here you are. But I do care that Russian missiles stop hitting Ukrainian homes. I do care that they stop hitting Ukrainian hospitals. And I do care that our cities stop being destroyed by a crazy dictator who just wants to bring us back to the Russian Empire or a Soviet Union. And this is my message to Ukrainian people, to American people, and people of the world.
Kira Rudik, you are brave, you are strong. My heart is with you. America's heart is with you as you fight this fight. You are a profile and courage. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Britt, coming to you, Kira's story is the story of thousands. I mean, the pizzeria owner taking up arms, truckers who are using their trucks to help with this war. There are thousands of men and women just like Kira.
It's inspiring to hear her speak. She speaks in perfect paragraphs, and she speaks with force and conviction, and it's both inspiring and heartbreaking to hear her, because you sense that with the limitations that the West
She speaks
has
with perfect
perhaps
paragraphs.
wisely
Shut the fuck up,
imposed on
bro.
itself about helping Ukraine, that nation is about to be crushed, and that the civilian population is about to be slaughtered in huge numbers, and that the refugee flow into our friendly Western nations will only increase, that a true human calamity is before us. And while we're helping, we have, perhaps for good reason, decided we'll only go so far. And that's what that poor woman was trying to appeal to us to change. But I don't foresee that.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking situation. We are all praying. We'll be right back.
Veteran homeowners, you made a smart move when you.
All right, folks. So I'm cutting the stream off. I'm going to go live on my channel, on my main channel right now. I'm cutting this. You're just going to come back to say peace anyway and pass the mic over to America Reports. I'm going to go live on my main channel now for Jen Psaki's press conference. She's going to have one in about 20 minutes. I'm going to go live now, start blazing, start talking shit. If you guys want to join, I'm going to be on my main channel. This channel right here, make sure you're subscribed, because this is where I'm going to be streaming Fox News moving forward. The reason I lost like 30 people watching is because they closed off the 420 politics finally today. I got the strike a couple days ago. They closed it off now. That's why I make these channels, folks. I know what I'm talking about. I'll see y'all later. Thank you very much.